get started.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me and see me? Excellent. How's everyone doing today? It's very exciting when you get your first paycheck and you can buy your own things. Very cool. Oh, sorry you got a migraine though. That's no fun. So anyways, I've been looking, or I put it up on the board. It's approaching the end of the year, right? And as the end of the year comes, we should have learned something this year, right? Something should have progressed. We should be smarter. We should be more confident about the things we know and how to do them. And we should be quicker to understand things that we're reading. And so I thought I'd ask you guys if you thought that was happening. And Brian says, it's called growing up. Matthew says, somewhat. And Carly, you feel mostly the same? That's what happens to me a lot of the time. Like sometimes I still have a hard time thinking that I'm an adult. And sometimes it's like, you know, like somehow I made it from first grade where I could barely read to like having my master's degree and being someone that teaches reading. So I must have at some point progressed, but it's very hard to notice when it was or how it happened or where all this information is coming from. So what I want to do today, we're going to come back to this question in a little bit. Okay, we are going to address these questions, this statement that I put up there. But first I wanted to show you a picture of me yesterday. Pretty cool, huh? It's my new summer project. When I'm not taking care of you guys, I'm going to be taking care of these guys. Does anyone else out there have a beehive, or have you ever seen someone with a beehive? It's my dad used to do it when I was younger, but it's my very first time doing it by myself. Don't kill them with fire. We need them. The environment needs them. We need them to like help pollinate stuff, and it's supposed to make my garden bigger and my apple trees more productive, and they're good for the environment. I know, I was so terrified. Like the little thing goes around my head. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta make sure they stay out. It's funny that you say that, Carly. Bees plus me equals running away very fast. Somebody, Matthew, was it you or Noah? No, it was Noah, I think, from this class posted something on Google Plus the other day, and he was, it was T-Rex chasing someone and said, this is me getting exercise, and I felt that way. So like, I only run if something's chasing me, like bees. And Xander, in the picture on the left, I'm not wearing gloves yet because they're still in their little box or whatever. But when I got out here by the actual hive that I was going to put them in, then I put on gloves. Gloves that actually went all the way up to here. So there was no way they were getting in. I know, bees pollinate flowers. Flowers make people happy. Anyways, so I just thought I'd show you guys because it was really fun yesterday. Okay, Kylie. I won't bring them over to your house. But anyways, on a more serious note, this week you're going to be continuing to read the Odyssey, and next week you're going to have, this week you're going to have a grammar and Odyssey test next week. And then the following week will be a review week to prepare for the final exam. There is going to be a final, it's not a presentation, it's a project. I should have put project. But you're going to do a project for the Odyssey, and that you're going to turn in during the final exam. So you won't turn it in with the lesson, but you'll turn it in during the final exam. So keep up the good work. We have this week and next week with classes, and then the following week is just final exams. That's how close we are. So just quick question for those of you that are here right now. If you look at everything you've read in the Odyssey so far, who has a favorite character and why, or a favorite story? Is there anybody that wants to share a little bit? Or like as you're reading the stories, is there one that you liked, one that you hated? I just want to get a little bit of feedback from you guys regarding your experience with the Odyssey so far. Go ahead, Carly.
Personally, I don't have a real favorite character or mythological character in the Odyssey because I don't really like myths that much, but I do find the myths somewhat interesting.
Okay, so you're going with you don't really have a favorite because it's just not something you're that into reading. I find myths generally to be a lot like poetry. People either love it or they hate it. I love myths of all sorts. But my husband, for example, like he doesn't understand the point in reading them. They drive him nuts. Oh, hey Miss Horn, I didn't see you pop in. Did you see the pictures I just showed with the class? Check it out. Oops, where'd it go? Pretty cool, right? The kids think I'm crazy, but I got bees last night. Well, yeah, last night, and I had to put them in their hive. Yeah. So I thought real honey, right? So I thought I'd share that with the kids. But now we were going ahead, we're reading the Odyssey, at least parts of it. And so far Carly has shared that like she doesn't even have a favorite because she's just not quite sure that she likes reading myths that much, which is totally understandable. Is there anybody out there that would disagree with Carly and would think that that Greek myths are really cool, or any kind of myths are really cool? Is there anyone that would have a counter argument to it? Okay, Brian doesn't have a favorite either, and Lonnie thinks they're interesting because they apply to our culture today. And I think, and maybe Carly could say something to this effect, but I think a lot of people would object particularly with what you said, Lonnie. They would say they don't have anything to do with today, and they're not accurate, and they're all make-believe, and they're too blah, blah, blah. So it's interesting that you say that, but they do come up a lot in modern culture, like the Midas touch and Zeus's lightning bolts and all that stuff. But I'm glad all of you are sticking with it and reading the Odyssey. If there's any questions that come up, I have study hall, is it Tuesday? I have office hours today after class and study hall tomorrow, so just stop in and see me if anything's just not making any sense to you. If there's anything else on this topic, just let me know. And again, this is going to be the final project that you're going to turn in with the final exam. So remember that these stories that you're reading about these people are going to turn into a project that you turn in with your final exam. So keep that in mind. As for today though, when we were talking at the beginning of class, I asked you guys, before I showed you my bees, I asked you if you felt any smarter, any more confident, any quicker to understand things that you were reading, and that's leading into what I want to do today. I want to look at some of the reading strategies that we've been going over this year, and I want to talk about why we've gone over them and what we're going to do with some of that. Give me a green check if you would agree that we've done a lot of reading this semester. Okay, so Carly says no, not so much. She needs more reading, so I'm going to have to assign her and Lonnie some extra work. But most of the rest of you are thinking that we've done plenty of reading. Carly's like, wait a second, where's my green check? No, but for a lot of us, it was a lot of reading. We read like 4 novels, we read a play, now we're reading a book of short stories. There's a lot that went on. Plus, we were doing a lot with Newsella and some nonfiction reading. So the ultimate question is, has all that practice actually made us any better? Like, are we smarter for it? Are we better readers because of it? And that's where, exactly, Carly. And that's where the question came in when you guys started class. And what we're going to do is we're going to review and then we're going to assess our reading strategies today. My ultimate goal as a teacher, and I'm hoping your goal as a teacher would be that like you'd get better and faster at reading and you would understand more and it would be less of a struggle. But one of you made the comment earlier that you're like, I don't know, I feel exactly the same as I did at the beginning of the year, and it would be really sad if 9 months later you were the exact same person. I mean, that's not growth in any way, and we don't want that. But because learning to read is such a gradual thing, you might feel like nothing happened. It's kind of like watching your fingernails grow. You never see them grow, then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, gotta clip my nails. So what we're going to do is we're going to assess whether all that reading did actually help us. And I made up a little rhyme yesterday to go with it. I said, data makes your claims fatter, and that's why they really start to matter. Boom. I cracked myself up. But the whole idea is that like you might not feel like you changed, but if you have the data to support it, if you have the there must have been a lag. Also now I'm getting the wows. But anyways, if you have the data that supports your claim, it makes it actually worth something. Like if you say, oh yeah, I feel like I read a lot faster, or I feel like I understand more of what I read. If you have the data to support it, that's really going to help. So that's what we're looking for today. So to review, remember I said we were going to review and assess our reading strategies. To review some of the things that we've done this semester, not this semester, but this entire year, are all these different kinds of reading strategies. Some of them you may have realized we were doing, and others it might have gone unnoticed by you, but it was totally planned by me. We talked a lot about prediction. When I mentioned prediction, when we did things like the anticipatory, what are they called? Anticipation guides. Like when I'd give you a bunch of statements and you had to agree or disagree before you read a story. And then you kind of had to think about if you're going to agree or disagree after the story. That was a lot of prediction. When I was asking you to like write a prequel to a story, when we would look at pictures before we would look at the books, that was all prediction. Generating questions when we were doing things like our research topic, and first you had to pick a topic and then you had to pick questions to answer about it. That was a method of generating questions, and I kind of did it backwards sometimes, where I didn't apply it just to reading but also to writing, because it goes both ways, right? We did some monitoring of comprehension and adjusting reading. We practiced drawing inferences, inferences being like when you take what you already know and combine it with what you're about to read or with what you just read to come to some bigger conclusion. Attending to and uncovering text structures, looking at the little different parts, looking at an outline compared to a paragraph, looking at poetry and the different structures that comes in. We did a lot of constructing visual representations. Quite often I would say, okay, here's a metaphor, someone find me a picture of it. Here's a simile, someone find me a picture of it. And in most of your assignments I asked you to find pictures to go with it. And of course, as always, we do quite a bit of summarizing. So when you think back on the year, it doesn't seem like maybe we did all of these things or we covered that much. And then, but if you start listing it out, we actually did quite a bit. Some of the reading strategies we talked specifically about had to do with either pre-reading or during reading, and then the post-reading would be like the summarizing and the creating. We're not going to go there today. We're going to focus on the pre-reading and the during reading. Do these all look familiar to you as you look around the wheel? Does this look familiar to you? Everyone should have been here to have seen these, right? Give me a green check if this wheel looks familiar. So for 5 of you, you were here last week in class, or the week before. But let's review it really quick. Some of the things you can do before you read. So before you actually start with the first sentence and aim to get to the second sentence, you can do things like look at the pictures. How many of you guys always look at the pictures first anyways? Give me a green check if even if I didn't tell you to, you always look at the picture first. Not Hannah? How many of you guys, when you see a newspaper or maybe an online website, you decide what to read based on if the picture gets your attention? Like you don't even look at the titles, you just look at a picture and that's what makes you look forward. Mari, I love the comics. That's the first section I read every week, every Sunday. Hannah, why are you hating on pictures today? I feel like Hannah's giving me a red X for everything. And I feel like Carly's the only one that's having video delay. Is everybody else's video okay? Okay. Carly's not having audio delay though because she responded right away. Anyways, looking at the pictures is actually a reading technique, a reading strategy that you would do. Usually the thing I do right after I look at the pictures is I look at the captions right underneath the pictures. That's my next step, and it's also a strategy even though it feels natural to me. To look at maps, charts, bolded phrases, and graphs is also a pre-reading strategy, so something you would do before you actually get into the text and read the full article. Again, it's anything that's big and bright and is standing out. People do that on purpose because they usually put a lot of information there. Likewise, when I asked you to do a research paper, I said you had to have a graphic, you had to have some sort of chart or map or graph of some sort. Remember? Titles and headings. Looking for the titles and headings to find a big idea is another huge strategy. And this goes beyond looking at just the main title, but like any sort of subtitle that would come up halfway through. Another pre-reading strategy is to read the first and last lines of each paragraph for more information. And this comes into play when it's a really complicated text and you're not quite sure where it's going. The first and last paragraph is always going to have the most information. And this will make sense to you guys if you think about our CDW paragraph, right? We always put the claim first. We always put the warrant last. And the claim is what you're going to be talking about, and the warrant would be why it's important. So those two sentences out of all the sentences in the paragraph would definitely have a large amount of information. So if you flip that back and look at your reading, it's another great reason to skim those sentences first. And then, of course, the last thing that you would do for pre-reading is ask questions. So you read the title, and then you think, well, why did they say that? Or who's going to prove that? I just saw on Facebook this morning they found Elvis Presley. Did you guys see that? Did anybody see that? They found Elvis Presley. He was a dead homeless man in California. Nobody else saw it? People. No, Lonnie. He was a part of the missing persons, or what do they call it when the CIA hides you on purpose? I forget what they call it. Someone in here has to know what I'm talking about, where they like take you and they like give you like a whole new life somewhere else where no one else can find you, and there's like 2 or 3 people in the CIA or FBI or something that knows that you're there. They do it for people that witness terrible crimes. Yes, thank you, Rachel. Witness protection. Anyways, so the reason I brought this up is because I saw the title, right? You're reading, so you skim the title and you're like, what? Elvis Presley found? And then I think, well, how old would he be by now? And how did nobody know where he was? And is this one of those fake things again? So anyways, that was my example of when you read something, like even just read the title and do your pre-writing and look at the pictures, right? Because they had a picture of him then and now to prove it was him. My first thought was all these questions. How do they know? Do they have DNA? Does his mom know? Does he have kids? Where was he living? Like all of those things come into my head, and by forming those questions, it makes me a better reader as I go through, because then I'm looking for those answers. Right, Will, yes, exactly. Just like he's out there with Michael Jackson and probably a couple other people that I can't think of right now. Like Diana, Princess Diana. She's not really dead. Anyways, so after you do all that pre-reading, you do all of that before you actually start reading the story, right? Or reading the article. Then while you're reading, you stick with those W's and H's, the who's, what's, when's, where's, why's, the how's. You try and clarify those questions you were asking yourself in the beginning. And if you have to, you reread it. Give me a green check if you've ever reread something because you didn't understand it at the end. And give me a red X if you can honestly say you refuse to reread anything. Okay, so either you guys are just really good readers that are patient, or you're not as honest as you should be. But there's a lot of people out there who, after they've read something, will like straight up refuse to reread it because they don't want to. They're not. They don't want to take the time. They're like, well, if I didn't get it the first time, why would I read it the second time? And it's just like anything. You try and shoot a basketball and you miss. You try again, you might make it. And right, Lonnie, sometimes it depends, right? Sometimes it was so boring the first time you read it, you're like, I'm not going to reread it for more information. But anytime you do anything the second or third time, it's going to make more sense. It's going to be clear. So rereading it, and part of rereading it is going back and forth around the difficult parts. So maybe everything makes sense except for this one section or this one chapter or this one paragraph. So then you go to the sentence before it and the sentence after it. And we've talked about this in class. We've talked about looking for word parts, like the word international. You can break it up in inter, as in between, nation, as in a country, and al, which would be a suffix just like ed or ing or ly or any of those chunks you can add to the end of the sentence to give it additional meaning. And then the last thing you would do while you're reading it is summarize it in your own words. So after each paragraph, you could be like, oh, that was about how JFK is part of the missing persons program, or whatever it would be. But all of these things, that's a lot. I mean, I have 6 squares on the pre-reading, I have 6 squares on the during reading, and this whole time you're reading an article, and then there's usually something to do after the article, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. But that's okay. Matthew, I don't know if you typed something wrong or if I'm missing something, but what's WITSEC? Are you saying wait a second? Or if anyone has a question about this, ask. WITSEC is another name for witness protection. Yeah, and my camera keeps freezing, so I'm going to turn my camera off for a little bit and hope it doesn't lag too much. But if anybody has any questions about any of the pre-reading or during reading questions or strategies, ask now, because we're about to go into our assignment for the day, our activity. Okay. So what we're going to do, earlier I was talking about how we might feel like we've grown as a reader, or we might feel like we haven't grown at all as a reader. And what we're going to do today is we're going to take an assessment to kind of prove to ourselves if we've learned anything or not. And if you guys remember, at the beginning of the year, we all logged into Newsela.com and we created an account, and we've read some articles on there. We've taken some quizzes. We've gone there quite a bit, and we've used ThinkCirca quite a bit. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go back to Newsela, because Newsela is the one where I have your original test. So I have the test that you took at the very start of the year, so that I could see where you guys were starting at, right? The data that's going to make you fatter. So I want everyone to log into there. The username is most likely going to be your your student email. And good, Carly, I'm glad you had it bookmarked all year. I believe I asked everybody to have it bookmarked, but you don't necessarily have it. Will, if you don't have it, it's because you joined us a little later in the year. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to create an account. When you go to, what's it called, Newsela.com, you should be prompted to register for an account. When it asks you for your class code, go ahead and put in that class code. So I see 2 people right now that have green checks. I'm assuming that means that you guys are in and good to go. And I also have a private message from some people that don't remember their name. If you give me 1 second, I can get you that name. For those of you that have your username but can't remember the password, I'm resetting everybody's password to the word password. It's a very bad idea to use the word password for your password for something that has to be secure. But for our purposes right now, it'll get everybody in, and then you can change it once you're in there. But again, change it to something you're going to remember. Anastasia, I got a yep, that means you're in, okay. I'm doing my best to keep up here, guys. Rachel, I reset yours to password. Michelle, you're welcome. Xander. Xander, or whoever just put that, reset it to incorrect. I saw that joke the other day that if you set your password to incorrect, then when it says your password is incorrect, where did I, oh, okay. I gotta find Xander's. Xander, you're the last one I think I have to reset. Xander, do you have your username? Okay, for those of you that, I see most people are in. So to not hold everybody else up, everyone that didn't get in, just hold on a second and I'll be there. I'll be right with you. For those of you that are in, we're ready, right? We're going to see if our use of these reading strategies we've been working on is actually making us better readers. So there's 3 stories that are assigned to you. I did 3 of them because I want you to choose one that you find the most intriguing based on the title. I don't want you to have to read all 3 of them. Just look at the titles and the picture quick and then decide which one you want to go with. And then you'll be asked to set the Lexile between 8:55 and 11:65. Each one has a slightly different Lexile, which is just a number it's a number that tells you where your reading level's at, if you're reading at the level of like a 30-year-old or a 3-year-old. None of you are going to be 3-year-olds. On the right-hand side next to the quiz, I'm sure you've seen it all before, it might let you choose and make sure it's in between these 2 numbers. Then, after you set the Lexile, read the article and apply your reading strategies. The before reading strategies, the during reading strategies, and the after reading strategy, which is the only one we really covered today, was summarizing what you've read in your own words. When you've gone through and carefully read the entire article, complete the quiz. Please take your time with the quiz, as you will be sending me the results. When you're completely done with the quiz, you are going to send me the results of your quiz in a private message. I don't want you guys to have to share it with everybody. No need for that, right? But I do want the results of your quiz. So you're going to send me your score. It's going to be 1 out of 4, or a number out of 4. There's 4 questions, so you'll send me that score, and you'll send me the Lexile number. Right now I'm asking you to set it between these 2 numbers. Send me the Lexile number that you had your quiz set at as well. And then later in this week we'll have the results, and we'll be able to see probably during writing workshops if you've gone up or if you've stayed the same or if you've gone down. Which, unless any of you guys experienced any major brain traumas this year, you shouldn't go down. But right now, before we get started, can everybody give me a green check if you understand what you're supposed to do right now? Okay, so most of you completely understand. So for those of you that completely understand, go ahead and get started. You can read the article and take the quiz and follow the directions on the board. For those of you that weren't able to get logged in due to a username or a password, make sure you're contacting me in the chat bar so that I can help you guys get it straightened out. Have fun, everybody. They're good articles, so enjoy them.